Welcome your faces back to episode number 49 of the series Profit or Loss, where I take faulty electronic items on eBay, attempt to fix them and sell them for a profit. We are currently on a 3-win streak, giving us a profit for those 3 weeks of £141. In terms of overall profit, we're nearly in the green. That is going to be the aim of today's video, to get back into the green profit side of things, because it's been a while. Do you know what's in the box? Profit. The box is full of these things. I don't like them. I don't know what it is. I'm just not a fan. Oh, a nice little label saying thank you for your purchase. That's a nice touch. The item in question is a PlayStation 5 that I paid a total of £200 for. Supposedly the issue is that we have no power at all. It did come with a HDMI cord as well as the power cable and the stand. I would actually say condition wise it's pretty good. Not many scratches or scuffs on the front of the console, and both of the panels are in really good condition. HDMI port on the back looks intact and doesn't look like it's been repaired before from what I can see. In which case, let's just plug in the power cable and see if the description was accurate. All right, power plugged in. 3, 2, 1. No power at all. You can't hear any beeps or anything like that. That's good. It's exactly what it says on the listing. No power. Okay, the moment we're all waiting for here. Has it been opened before? Yes. Yes, it has. We can see up here that the warranty sticker is missing. Again, though, condition-wise, there's not many scratches or anything like that, so it looks to be okay. As far as I can see, the screws all seem to be intact. Let's continue taking it apart. All right, removing this plate, I can see I've just unplugged these cables, but all the screws seem to be in the correct positions. And judging by first looks, whoever's been inside this before appears to know what they're doing. Now, I can never be certain of that until I get into the console itself, but I'm pretty confident that they knew what they were doing. First things first, as always, we are testing that power supply just to ensure that we are good. Yep, 12 volts, perfect. Now, I think I have some good news and some bad news. Bad news is that I can see some sort of flux down here, so it shows that the board has been worked on before. But the good news is that other than this place, the only other bit of flux I can find is on the HDMI up here. I can't see any signs of work anywhere else. So believe it or not, that actually gives me a bit of hope. Let's head on over to the scope and see what we can find. All right, so I've managed to find a short. I'm not paying any attention to what we have with the HDMI IC here just yet. This SPV chip has a hole in it here, so I think I don't know what's happened to the solder here either with this cap. But if we measure, these caps seem to be absolutely fine, but on this rail here we have a short. Now, tricky thing is that it's not a short to ground. It's actually 12 ohms minus my leads. You're probably talking around about 11.5 ohms or so. Injecting voltage here isn't really going to be an option just yet. If I flip this area where we have 6 little wires here, it goes to this side of the board where these little 6 wires are, and as you can see, it ends here. Like, there's nowhere for it to go. It could go through to somewhere else on the board, but I believe the SPV chip links to the south bridge. Again, could be wrong. If I'm being honest with you as well, in certain light, I can see what looks to be flux in this area. So, as you can see just about here, look at that. So maybe it is a little bit worse off than what we thought. It looks like this person has already changed the south bridge IC. What is that? Okay, fine. A little bit of what looks to be copper wire or thin trace. As I said when I was taking it apart, I think whoever's done this has done a clean job. I don't know for sure that they changed out the south bridge, but it's highly likely considering how well this person's put certain chips back on. Saying that, there was a hole in one of them. I've also just checked around the back of the south bridge and there isn't a single cap that is shorted, but that doesn't really confirm for me that it's not the south bridge. Before I put the blinders on and just look straight towards the south bridge, I'm just going to check over the board again to see if there's anything else I can spot. In which case, I found a couple of other things. So there is a diagnostic tool called UART for PlayStations, and it looks like somebody has done that here. So they've already plugged this in and pretty much by the looks of it done a full diagnostics on this. This isn't somebody who is trying to get into repairs or anything like that. This is somebody who has clearly gone to another level to try and fix this board. I would definitely say somebody with more advanced skills, a lot more advanced than me. So what does this essentially mean, Joey? It could mean that they got an error code that just stated that there's an issue with the APU itself, and then they've simply just put it back together and listed it on eBay. The chances of me being able to repair this again slimmer and slimmer, I'd say probably like 5%, maybe even less, but I'm still going to give it a good go. We fast forwarded maybe around about 30 minutes or so of me investigating more. What I can confirm is that this fuse here is what has the short on it of around about 12 ohms or so. This is the 5 volt rail. And after doing a little bit of research on videos, etc., shout out to a channel called Fix My App who has a really, really good repair teardown guide for a PlayStation 5. It's of my understanding that 12 volts initially comes in to this IC here, which then outputs 5 volts. Pin number 1 on this IC isn't showing what I think it's meant to be showing. So I do have eyes on this IC, but I opted for a small amount of voltage injection. Because I can see that it's a 5 volt line, I thought in my head, logically, I thought I'd be able to just start maybe at 0.5 and see what happens, see if anything shows me any signs of heat on the board. And it does. We seem to have a little heat spot on this little IC here. Look at that. And let me show you what that is under the scope. That component is just about here. And to me, it doesn't look like it's been changed. So I'm going to do that right now. It's not connected correctly. Let's put some flux down. Let it flow into place. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There we go. Just make sure it's pushed down. There we go. The question now is, do we still have a short on the 5 volt rail? Or do we have bigger problems at hand? Because it could be that this was just linking the two rails, I guess, right? What I should have said and what I forgot to actually record is that my short disappeared when I removed this IC. But I've left that a bit too late to mention. So is our short there or has it disappeared? It was this rail. Okay. All right, so the short's actually gone. No way was that little component blown. Surely not. The reason why I'm thinking it's not going to be that easy is because of the fact this person has used UART to see what's going on, maybe even replace the south bridge and the HDMI IC. Perhaps they were a bit reluctant to inject voltage like I was, probably stupidly, to see if that chip was the faulty one. If I go over to the fuse that had a short, yeah, look, it's absolutely fine now. We have a continuous path as well. And the other place we had the short was up here on this coil, because that's a 5 volt line, and that's fine. And then lastly, here is where I was getting a bad reading, and that seems to be fine now. We could be on to a winner, perhaps. Maybe. Hopefully. Moment of truth. I have plugged it in. Do we get 12 volts? Yes, we do. We get 12 volts just down here. So I'm going to try and power it on in 3, 2, 1. Still nothing. Okay. I won't lie. I got my hopes up a little bit there as well. All right. Okay. It looks like we still don't have our 5 volt standby. I'm pretty sure it's definitely meant to be up here. Yeah, we still don't have the 5 volt. Okay. So back to the drawing board. If I go on that F7002 fuse, yeah, that also seems to be fine. So it's fine now. I wonder if I go and try and power this on again, trying to do that, if I now measure in voltage mode, yeah, I don't get 5 volts. Look, you see that? I don't get 5 volts on where I should get 5 volts. How strange is that? And now if I disconnect the power and I measure in continuity mode, yeah, look, it's a 53 ohm short now. 53 ohms. And that obviously disappears after a while for whatever reason. This one's getting a little bit confusing, but I definitely know I have an issue with the 5 volt rail. I'm actually thinking about trying a different south bridge. I mean, whoever's worked on this previously has tried another south bridge, but that one might have also been bad. So I might just give it a shot and see what happens. Could it be completely throwing me off? Yes, entirely. Is it stupid? Perhaps, but it's all practice. Before I do that, we know that the HDMI IC has been changed out, so I'm just double checking that this has been soldered correctly. I mean, it looks like it. It's good soldering. Like I said, the person who's worked on this does look extremely competent. Chips on the right way. I just wanted to confirm that as well. If I go back over to that 5 volt rail now, I'll tell you what I'm reading. In resistance mode, I get I get 12 mega ohms. If I have a look in diode mode, this is the 5 volt line that we had a second ago, and it's 0.38. So now, supposedly, the 5 volt line is absolutely fine. It doesn't make sense, really. Let's actually just go with a reflow here, just to see, if there's quite a lot of flux underneath the IC, because if that is the case, I've seen Toltec Merck say that sometimes when there's too much flux under the south bridge, it doesn't work properly. So let's see if we can flush it out. Failing that, we will try a new south bridge. And I'm pretty sure the 5 volt line goes to loads of different components on the board. The Wi-Fi IC, south bridge, SSD controller IC. This is solid on the board, that's for sure. And to be fair, I can't see any flux oozing out of it, so maybe the south bridge hasn't been changed. Maybe this is a factory one. Let's put some flux under. In which case, I think I'm just going to remove it and see. I think that's factory. So we could be in for a bit of a winner here. Let's put some of our flux on the board. I don't think that's been changed. So I was completely wrong. It just looked like there was flux definitely underneath. But maybe that flux has travelled from somewhere else. Right, so I've put some leaded on the iron. We're just going to go over the balls that we have on the board. Bring down that melting temperature. Nice. No pressure at all. I'm not even really pushing down on the iron. Just letting the wick do the work. Just like that. Then we grab our cotton swab. And get rid of all that dried, burnt flux. IPA and a toothbrush. Just to see how we're looking. Looking good. Maybe just one more little bit up here. There it is, gone. That's all nice and prepped for a new one. Now we reball another south bridge. We just add some flux. I do want to heat the chip up a little bit. Add leaded solder. And now just wick that away. Cotton swab just to clean it up. People may or may not know that I've had some struggles trying to reball recently, but more specifically an APU on a Switch Lite, and I've not really had issues with south bridges on PS5, and I'm going to prove that today, hopefully anyway. Here we have our solder paste, which has been not ridiculously dried out, but it was a tiny bit wet, so I've dried out a little bit. There we go. Temperature on the Aten ST862D is going to be 370 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 80%, and just keeping my distance as much as I can from the chip and the stencil, because that is what is key here, keeping your distance. There we go. See, didn't seem to have an issue with that first time on the south bridge. Lovely jubbly. What we're going to do is apply a tiny bit of flux. Chip's still going to be hot. I'm just going to float all those balls into place now. SB temperature is going to go right down because of all the flux that we have as well. But we'll keep it 370 degrees. There we go. All the balls nicely reflowed. Game on. Now we go a little bit of flux, tiny bit. Cotton swab. Just to spread it. Just out of curiosity, I want to see what reading we get on the 5-volt line. I'm going to change this chip out as well because it has that hole in. We get 5K here now on the 5-volt rail. In diode mode, that is 0.37. We do have to make sure this is in the right spot. So give it a little bit of a jiggle. And there we go. I think that's good. Looks good to me. Temperature 440 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 70% now. And just go around the chip. I'm actually going to go around the board as well, just to make sure we put enough heat into it. We don't want it to be too cold. In an ideal situation, we want all of the balls to liquefy at the same time. I'm going to come in a little bit closer. I just want to see now if that's solidified on the board. So I'm going to take the heat off, just gently give it a little tap in a second. Yeah, it is. It's on the board. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with some flux. And now we're going to reflow and give it a little bit of a nudge. And this is where we should see the flux get sucked up underneath the chip once it's sat properly. And that's where we can give it a little bit of a nudge. I'm going to give it a little nudge now. There we go. You see that little love tap? And again. Perfect. Now I'm going to come off the heat. And there goes that flux. See it getting soaked up underneath, which isn't ideal because we want to try and get as much flux out as we can. But we're just going to try and soak up as much as we can out from underneath the IC. We'll flush it out with some isopropyl alcohol in a second. Alright, let's put some IPA under there. Flush it out if we can. Give it all now the clean that it deserves, because this is it now. Because next is the test. Oh, before we do that, we do need to change out that other IC that we said, didn't we? Let's do that. This little guy right here. Put some leaded in the area, because some of those pads do look bare. Just soak up that tiny little bit on ground. Bring in this one. Add some flux. Bring down our airspeed. Just float into place. There we go. Just give it a little tap. Yeah, soldered. Wicked. A little bit of cleaning magic. And we're now off to the races. Here we go. Does that look soldered? Yes, it does. Just to make sure. Ball's going to be hot, but as long as I don't see 50 ohms here. There we go. 4K. Perfect. And climbing. Let's give it a test. Front ribbon cable in. LED connector cable in. Here we go. No explosion. Good. 3, 2, 1. No. Nothing. Okay. Take the power out. Has our short come back? Remember our 50 ohms short? Here's probably best place to measure. 50 ohms. Look. So the south bridge was okay, as far as we know anyway, but I'm now in a little bit of turmoil. So it wasn't the south bridge, it wasn't that little small converter IC. I don't know what exactly it was. So it's back to the drawing board again. This one's given us a bit of a runaround, isn't it? I was just looking at this little IC here, and it does look like this MOSFET here has also been changed. So I think somebody, again, previously has been to town on this. It could also be factory, but it just looks a little bit angled to me. I was going to say, I'm thinking about changing this because, again, looking at video research, it converts the 12 volt to the 5 volt. I don't know if it's been changed already. Regardless, let's get it swapped out, even if it has been swapped out already. If it has been swapped out, they've used unleaded solder, that's for sure. No, it definitely looks factory. Right, let's give this another test. Shock, I'm not going to bore you with it. It didn't work. Exactly the same thing. What's weird is that when I go to push the power button, the 3.3 rail just disappears for a good 10 seconds or so and then randomly comes back on. And exactly same with the 5 volt. Turns to 0, comes back on. I've been speaking to some people on Discord. Shout out to Spanner, Steto and Andrew. I appreciate all three of you. And this is where I'm at. This is the dialogue IC. And when I push the power button on, what I should be getting is either 1.5 volts or 2 volts on this little cap down here, or something along those lines. This is a 020 board, so those readings might differ, but we should get something when we power on, and I'm getting nothing. No change when I push that button. I'm getting 5 volts around the IC, but it's not dropping down. My theory is that's then affecting what's going on with our south bridge having the issue. Maybe scrap what I just said, because this is actually a different dialogue IC to the one next to the south bridge, isn't it? The one next to the south bridge is this one, and I'm not really sure what I'm meant to get on this dialogue IC. So we have a DA9065. I'm going to change out this IC as well as this other dialogue IC that I have right here. And if anything, I'm just learning slowly but surely. Right, I also skipped the process of the chip changing, but you can see that this one has been changed and is looking pretty good. This IC here, this is the one that's next to the south bridge. And then the other side near the SSD control IC, should I say, that's also been swapped out and looks exactly how it should. So it's time to give it another test. Is it like test 4 or 5, I think? I've tested and it doesn't work. So I'm going to show you exactly the example that I'm talking about. So if I put my lead here and I press power, I should get something here, but I'm not getting anything. However, we have the 5 and we have the 3.3 in multiple different locations. I'm not getting anything down here again though. It's a 020, so I don't know if I meant to, but if I put my probe here and press the on button, I get nothing at all down here either. So yeah, I'm very weirded out right now. I don't know what else to do here. I'm just going to check the status of the BIOS and see what's going on with it. Alright, after all of that, the BIOS has been swapped out and we have some 020 firmware on there. How hopeful am I that this is going to work? At this point, I'm not too fussed. I've learned quite a bit with this, so let's put it back in the chassis and see if it powers on. Logically, I don't know where to go next with this, but all I know is I don't really want to give up on it just yet. I know that I've done pretty much as I think I can, but I don't think it's APU related, so I'm going to try my hardest to get it working. Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1. Beep, and the light. No flipping way. Does that go to a white light? I've not got the clamp on, so I'm going to turn the console off before anything bad happens. Oh my god, it goes to a white light. It was the BIOS chip. I can't believe I've managed to get it working. Well, we don't know if it's working. I mean, it goes to a white light. I just need to test a bunch of other things. My only logic behind the BIOS chip was I was using UART to try and diagnose what was going on and see if the south bridge was okay. But every time I took the power cable out and put it back in, I was missing 3.3. So I don't think I was able to talk to the south bridge to see what was going on. But I'm pretty sure that in booting, the BIOS is before south bridge. So it can't even get to the south bridge phase to report anything is what I'm assuming. And usually I would associate bad BIOS with 3 beeps on the console, and at least I would get a beep, but I wasn't getting anything. Does that potentially mean the other south bridge was bad and I needed to change the south bridge and the BIOS, or could I have just got away with changing the BIOS straight away? Who knows? I'm going to put it back together and see what we got. Right, hopefully monitor's going to lock any second now. There it is. I've now pretty much tested everything with this PS5 and it seems to be working absolutely fine. I factory reset it, I've signed into my account, I played a little bit of Astro's Playroom, but I'm going to have to play another couple of games just to make sure I stress it enough to give it the A-OK to then sell. But I'm super happy that I managed to get this working. Now let's do the fun part and head over to Sally's spectacular spreadsheet to see how much profit we made. So I spent a total of £200 on the console. I haven't paid anything for parts because obviously it was the BIOS IC. I took that from a donor board. My sell price, I think I'll be able to get £280 for this console, which will leave us with a profit of £54.80. pence. If we put that in our total, there we go. We are slowly crawling back. £31.77, still in the negative, but edging closer and closer and closer to positive. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that whirlwind. I certainly did, considering I probably learned quite a bit there. If you want to see last week's episode, I'll leave it up here in the corner of your screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.